to let us know who you are and where you're coming in from. Increasingly on these evenings, I have a sense of us arriving in a shrine room at Cambridge Buddhist Centre. And as I say that, I realise that it's been a long time since most of us have been in a shrine room at Cambridge Buddhist Centre. And it might be an unfamiliar image to some of you, a completely unfamiliar image, a shrine room. So we can imagine this as a pleasant, open space, plenty of room here, no need to worry about social distancing. And importantly, it's dedicated to our being together and our meditating together. So it isn't my room, even though I do happen to be in my room. It's our room. So we're not stuck in our own rooms. We are sharing a space together. And I'm going to talk for a little while, and then we'll meditate together. Tonight's practice is the Metta Bhavana, the loving kindness meditation. We'll have a chance after that for any questions or observations you have. And we'll finish at 8 o'clock, fairly promptly at 8 o'clock. I'm going to read you a poem. This is by a friend of ours from London Buddhist Centre called Paramananda. And it's called Meditating on Zoom. Sitting alone in my front room, in front of a rectangle of light, with others sitting alone in their homes, a gathering of sorts, feeling a sense of connection, absorbing and radiating, affecting each other like tiny particles are said to affect one another over vast spaces by modern physics, or lovers conquering separation through the heart's imagination, spoken of in ancient tales. So as I think of you sat in front of your rectangles of light, as Paramananda has it, I realise that I don't know all of you, but I recognise a lot of you as regular attendees on these Thursday evenings. So welcome back if that's you. A really big welcome if you are here for the first time at a meditation night. And I know we have people here who are on the 6-week meditation challenge course, which we're running on Saturday mornings, and people from the team for that course. So you are, of course, very welcome as well. And these evenings, these meditation evenings, link in with what we've been looking at on the 6-week meditation challenge. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about my own experience of meditation to introduce tonight's theme. So I started to learn to meditate a long time ago. It was before the internet. So it'd be sometime in the 80s, I guess, the 1980s, just in case you were wondering. And because there was no internet, we used to go and get a book from the library or buy a book if we wanted to learn something. Couldn't just Google, how do I learn meditation? And I bought a book which had meditation and had something about beginners in the title. It was really cheap, and it was very, very bad. I sort of hope it's no longer in print, and here's why. In the first couple of pages, this book told me that I should get into a lotus posture, and rather dismissively suggested that if I couldn't get myself into a lotus posture, then at a push, a half lotus would do. And then I should focus on a candle flame or an image and become concentrated, calm, and content. I may be doing it a bit of a disservice, but I can't remember anything else in the way of instruction in this book. There were lots of really nice pictures of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, but not much in the way of instruction. And I stuck with this for, it must have been the best part of a week. And every time I sat down, I tried to twist my legs into this particular posture, and that hurt. And I got angry with the pain. I was angry with myself because I couldn't get into the posture. I was angry with the author, definitely. And increasingly, I realized that I really, really wanted to do this. I was really grasping for this state of calm that the author was talking about, what meditation was about. And I tried so hard that I found myself becoming sleepy and tired, exhausted during these meditations, and started to wonder whether there was something wrong with me because I couldn't meditate. Started to become anxious about my lack of ability. And finally began to doubt that I would ever meditate, or even that meditation actually existed and hadn't been sort of created as an elaborate sort of several thousand-year-old con to sell books to people like me. And it wasn't a good start to my meditation career. And thank goodness, more than 20 years later, I rocked up at Cambridge Buddhist Centre at a class that was very like this, actually. And that was better. So for a start, nobody tried to put me into a contorted, uncomfortable meditation posture. And maybe more importantly than that, I started to understand that those mental states that had arisen for me 20 odd years previously, so becoming angry, really wanting something, really wanting a result, getting sleepy or anxious or doubtful, they're actually really important. They're the working ground for a meditator. They're the working ground for life. They're what gets in the way of us living a fulfilled, happy life. They're a foundation of dealing with these, approaching, recognizing, and dealing with these mental states. They're a foundation for a path to our full potential as human beings, which is quite a strong statement, isn't it? But it's I'm convinced it's absolutely true. Dealing with these states leads us towards our full potential. And collectively, these things that get in our way, these mental states that get in our way, are known as the hindrances. That's the traditional term for them. And we were looking at these on Saturday, and I was introducing a way of working with them, which used an acronym, RAIN, which was to recognize what was going on, to accept it, to have a good look at it, to investigate it, and to not identify with it. And it's a really good way of working with the hindrances. And it's quite sort of word-based. I like words. I work very well with narratives. But not everybody does. Some of us are much more attuned to the visual world. So we work well with imagery. So I wanted to sort of redress the balance tonight, as it were, and work with some imagery in our meditation tonight and look at these hindrances using this imagery, as well as ways of working with the hindrances. Important to recognize, I think, that whatever method we're using, we're trying to do the same thing. We're trying to come into a really vivid awareness of what's happening in our experience. The Buddha was a fantastic teacher. I'm sort of realizing this more and more and more. The more I try and do this sort of thing, the more I realize the skill as a teacher that the Buddha displayed. He adapted his approach to what he was teaching and who he was teaching. And he spoke to a vast cross-section of Indian society 2,500 years ago. So monks and nuns, of course, but also kings and queens and farmers, businessmen and villagers. And sometimes he would talk quite didactically. He would teach that way. He'd use technical terms, perhaps, particularly if he was talking to monks and nuns. But he would also sometimes just ask simple questions of people to find out what their experience was and to work with that. And whenever he taught, his teaching was often shot through with these beautiful similes and metaphors and parables. So what I'm going to work with tonight is some similes that have been handed down to us from the Buddha, similes that represent what gets in our way when we meditate. And we simply imagine that we are a body of water, a lake perhaps. And if we are angry, we may notice that the water is getting hot. Maybe it's even boiling. We can't see underneath the surface of the water. If we really want something, then the water is coloured. In the traditional model, it's coloured with dye. I like to think of oil or petrol lying on top of water, and when the light hits the oil, you get this beautiful rainbow pattern. It's really pretty, but again, it stops us seeing through to the depths of the water. And it colours our entire experience if we really want something. If we're sleepy, then the water is covered with algae. It has no life-giving properties anymore. It's sort of stagnant. If we're anxious, if we're restless, then the waters are whipped up as though a breeze is running across the water. Again, we can't see through to the surface, to underneath the surface of the water. And if we're doubtful, if we're stuck and unable to make a decision or commit to anything, then the water is murky and cloudy, as if it's been stirred up, the mud's been stirred up at the bottom, and we can't see. We can't see the water, we can't see ourselves. So we're going to play with this imagery during our meditation this evening. And don't worry too much, or at all in fact, about which label is attached to which particular image. Rather focus upon the image and how it feels, how the state of the water makes you feel. So most of what I've said so far relates to, in a way, relates to the negative, to what's getting in the way, what we don't want to be in our experience. Meditation life, though, is about much more than the absence of the unpleasant. It's about the presence of the positive, of the beautiful. And that's of course, the aim in our practice tonight. The metta bhavana, we are cultivating the beautiful state of feeling loving, kindly, friendly towards ourselves and all beings. And the Buddha described these some of these positive states that we can experience in meditation. I don't want to dwell on the technical side, so I'm going to try and describe them in words briefly before moving on to some more similes. So in the first state, as these things that are getting in the way, the hindrances, recede or maybe disappear altogether, we can become more absorbed in what we are meditating upon. And joy can arise, physical and mental pleasure can arise in company with this. In the next stage, we can have the same intense mental and physical pleasure, and thoughts start to recede. So we're no longer really thinking at all. We're just experiencing what is happening. And then the mind remains in this joyful, blissful state. And the body, in a way, sort of recedes, or the experiences of the body start to recede a little. So the joy is just in the mind. And in the fourth of these states, the bliss, the joy, that itself disappears. And we find ourselves existing in a place that's beyond pleasure, beyond pain, in a positive, peaceful state. This has the flavor of transcending our ordinary experience, of perhaps being in contact of something beyond certainly beyond our knowledge, beyond our usual experience, that we can only sort of contact through meditation and imagination. So those are the words. Let's give you some more images to work with, and don't worry about remembering all these. As I tell you, I'll remind you as we meditate which images we might like to bring into our experience. So here's the first simile for a positive state during meditation. Your bath attendant, and if you don't have one, I do recommend getting a bath attendant, but if you don't have a bath attendant, then just imagine you have somebody preparing your bath. And they're preparing your soap, and they're mixing the soap flakes with the water. And they're doing this so skillfully that the water is completely absorbed in the soap, and the soap is completely absorbed in the water. So we end up with this beautiful soapy mass that is not soap, not water, completely combined. So a sense of no separation. So no separation for us between our minds and our bodies, for example, being focused and a complete being. In the second simile, we're a lake again. We're a body of water, and there's an underground source within this lake that's feeding fresh, cold water in. That's very bubbly, and these bubbles are sort of joyous, and they rise up and they completely fill the lake. They completely fill you. Last simile. It's a hot, sticky day. This is India. This isn't the UK in February. And you come out of this hot, sticky jungle, and in front of you there's a beautiful lake. It's clear and it's cool, and of course you jump in and you bathe in the lake, and you become completely refreshed in the lake. And then you step out and you're covered in a great length of soft, pure white cloth. So for those of you of a poetical bent, this is samite. So you're clothed, you're wrapped completely in this soft cloth that's clean and pure and insulating. Good. Okay, so we'll meditate, and I'm going to try and bring some of those similes into our metta bhavana practice, cultivating our well-wishing. And I want us to have some time with this, some space, maybe, because of course we've got time. But I want this to be quite spacious for us. And so for that reason, I'm going to just lead us through 3 stages of the metta bhavana rather than the usual 5. So we'll cultivate loving kindness towards ourselves in the first stage. In the second stage, we'll cultivate this loving kindness, friendliness towards a friend. And in the last stage, we will allow the metta to expand outwards to include all beings, wherever they are. And by the way, if you do feel pushed for time in your meditation, I think it's a really good idea to limit your practice rather than try and cram all the stages of whatever practice you're doing into the time you have, which is what I'm doing tonight. I'm not cramming. I'm expanding the stages to fill the time. So let's settle into our meditation postures. Maybe the basics of our posture, making sure that we have a firm contact with the ground, with the earth. So we're on a chair, that our feet are flat on the ground, if that's possible. That we're firmly connected to our seat, it's a cushion or a chair. And in a way, if it's possible, to allow our back to arise without slumping back or forward. So the lower body is supporting the upper body, the ground supporting all of us. Maybe even a sense of the ground pushing up to support us as the weight of our body is pushing us into the ground. Getting a sense of arriving more fully in this space, this special shared meditation space, arriving with the others that are here with us. And you might like to close your eyes. Turning our attention towards the body. Noticing what we can feel in the body. Perhaps moving our attention from our feet, our toes, our ankles, all the way through the body until we reach the head. Noticing what's there. So it might be that we find something pleasant or unpleasant, or something neutral. No particular feeling tone to some of the sensations in our body. And whatever we find, allowing it to be there, letting it be there, not trying to change anything. Whatever is there is okay. We can do exactly the same with any emotions that are present, any feelings. Whether there's something in particular or just a general tone. Do we feel up or down? Or in the middle? And again, whatever we find is okay. We can let it be there. We don't have to change anything. And we can do the same with thoughts. What thoughts are present? Pleasant thoughts, unpleasant thoughts, or neutral thoughts. They're all just thoughts. And we can let them be there. The metta bhavana, the cultivation of loving kindness. So seeing if we can settle even further into our posture. into stillness. The only movement, the breath entering and leaving the body. And from this stillness, looking for a sense of ourselves as water, a lake. What's the water like in the lake? Is it still? Is it warm or hot? Is it disturbed in any way? The surface ruffled, or is it a bit murky? And however it is fine. We can let it be like that. We may get a sense as we settle of the water settling. And as water settles, it clears. Wishing ourselves well. And we can use phrases quietly to ourselves. May I be well. May I be happy. May I be free from suffering. Dropping the phrases into the water. And we can stay with this image. And if we like, imagine the soap and the water being completely mixed together, becoming less divided, more whole, complete. Noticing what this feels like, gently looking for any sense of pleasure in the body or the mind. Staying in touch with the image of the lake and our own well-wishing. And bringing our good friend to mind. So perhaps a memory or an image bringing your friend to mind and wishing them well. And as we do this, we can notice the lake, what the water's like now. Always the possibility of becoming clearer and calmer. Or it may be disturbed in some way, or muddy, whatever it is, letting it be like that. Dropping the phrases for our friend into the water as well. May you be well. May you be happy. May you be free from suffering. And we might like to imagine that for both of us, the lake is being fed with refreshing, bubbly, joyful water, filling us both. Noticing what that feels like, looking for any pleasure in the mind and in the body. Still in touch, still connected with our friend, ourselves, and the well-wishing towards us both. Allowing the friendliness and love, the metta, to increase, nurturing it, allowing it to grow. Metta is limitless, unconditional. Returning, if we like, to the image of the lake. Noticing the water and the state it is in now. We can imagine ourselves emerging from the hot, sticky jungle, coming upon the beautiful, clear, peaceful lake, bathing, refreshing ourselves in the water, emerging from the lake and wrapping ourselves in the pure, soft, white cloth. wrapping us completely. This cloth is big enough for us, our friend, and all beings. Allowing the well-wishing, the metta, to expand in all directions, touching more and more beings. All the people here with us in this space, all our friends, our loved ones, all the people we like, the people we don't like, people we barely know. People who we may never know, we may never meet them. We can still wish them well. May all beings be well. May all beings be happy. May all beings be free from suffering. Before bringing this practice to a close, we can let go of any effort. We can continue to sit. And if we like, we can keep the image of the lake with us. Noticing the state of the water. So please do take your time. So opening your eyes whenever you're ready. So gently letting go of the practice completely. And while it always feels a little bit strange to invite you to do this after meditating, but we have some time together. And if you would like to use that by posting any comments or any questions you have, then please do that.